So today we're talking about insurance. So what you need to know before, during, and after remodel so you don't get in trouble. So we're going to break that down right now. The Educated Homeowner, Know Your Home Like a Pro, brought to you by A New Day Construction, where every day is a new day. All right, so today we have Richard Young here. Thank you, Richard, for being on. And it's got a wealth of information. We've been talking before the show, and it's a lot of stuff I didn't know about insurance. So this is, if you don't know, if you're going through remodel, stick here, because this will save you some money and hopefully prevent you in a big lawsuit or whatever that may occur. So Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, thanks for having me. So Country Financial is celebrating 100 years in business this year. And I've been with Country Financial for a little over 9 years. I've been doing this for about 14 years. And I just love everything that we have at Country Financial. We're not your typical insurance agency, and the fact that we do insurance on homeowners and commercial, but we also do financial services, so we can really take a whole look at everything the client has. But today we've got some special topics on remodeling and the things that you need to consider about your insurance before you even start.
Yes, and this is, so stick around, because this is definitely will save you. A lot of people look over this. They'll take the piece of paper that the contractor gives them and assume they have insurance, and there's a lot that you need to know before diving into a remodel, because like you said earlier to me, if you're doing a kitchen remodel and increases your home value $40,000,
Yep.
If you don't increase your insurance, that's a problem.
That's right.
So yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, let's get into it. So the first question I have is, if you start a remodel, do you have to contact your insurance company?
You absolutely should contact your insurance company, and here's why.
Okay.
Because when your home policy was originally written, it was based on certain facts. And if you're getting ready to make serious changes, like adding square footage, right, or upgrading your kitchen or upgrading flooring, things like that, you need to let the insurance company know, because if not, you may have some coverage gaps. I'll give you an example. So you love to do high-end kitchens. So if you're taking a home that's got what is known as a builder-grade kitchen and you're putting in a $50,000 kitchen, well, you just added close to $50,000 to the value of the home.
Right.
And let's say you had a fire 6 months after the project was completed, but you never told your insurance company. They may not pay out that full replacement cost for the kitchen because you didn't notify them and increase the value of the property at that time.
Right. And I'm glad you said that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Because actually, what would be worse than that is pipes. So, when you got a contractor doing we've been in instances
Yep.
to where we finished the remodel and all of a sudden when the pipe popped.
Yep, exactly.
And especially if you're dealing with your older homes, because when we tie in that old CPVC, it gets brittle. And so yeah, if you do I never thought about that. So if they do a $50,000 kitchen remodel, say they get a flood, the insurance company may say, wait a minute, we didn't know you had $10,000 marble countertops in there. We didn't know you had, oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and something else to consider too is that during the remodel, you may need to add temporary coverage called a builder risk or remodel endorsement to let the insurance company know that you're actually doing this work, so that additional coverages are on the policy to protect you from liability, and we'll get there in a little bit.
Okay, yeah, because I'm interested about the remodeling.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was available, and I mentioned what that product is.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so this next question is near to my heart, because mine is educating the customer about how to hire the right contractor. Of course, I'll come at them with a lot of other knowledge, but now I have an insurance professional in here, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the risks, the liabilities, what could happen, what they need to know to be covered when somebody's actually working on their house, whether it's just a handyman or a full remodel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the definition of a handyman is somebody that would change out a light bulb or change out a ceiling fan, not somebody that's going to go in and rip out cabinets and put in new cabinets or finish off basement space for you. So you need to make sure that your contractor is licensed and has the proper insurance for that. The reason why is if something happens, and we'll go back to that example of the pipes that you brought up. Well, if the handyman has that and they actually nail through a pipe and cause a slow leak, that may not be covered under their handyman coverage, and the homeowner policy may not cover it either because of certain stipulations in the homeowner policy, because it was done by the contractor. It should be their insurance that's covering it, not your home insurance. So that's one reason why you want to make sure that you're using somebody that is licensed and insured. Not only that, but it could affect your resellability of the house down the road if unpermitted work is done.
Okay.
Regular handyman do not pull permits to do that. You've got to be a contractor.
Most contractors don't pull permits.
Exactly.
I would say that, yeah.
You've got to consider that, because it could be a very serious thing when you try to go sell the house and there's this additional addition that was never certified and never permitted to begin with, and now you got a serious problem trying to sell your property.
Wow.
So once you do get that contractor picked out, you need to verify their insurance with your insurance company. So you can send that certificate of insurance over to your insurance agent, and they can check to make sure that that policy is currently valid. Because if it's not, then you could end up having somebody that is either uninsured or underinsured for the job, and if something happens, guess who's going to end up having to foot the bill? It won't be the insurance company.
Wow. Yeah, you brought up a few points. One, like you said, handyman, which handyman is a loose term in this industry. A lot of guys who claim handyman are building porches, decks, a little bit of everything. So, if they're carrying handyman insurance, liability insurance, and we got to talk about workman's comp too, because usually the handyman don't have workman's comp, because it doesn't really cover them. But if they get hurt, the homeowner still may be liable.
That's exactly right. They could actually come after the homeowner to pay out on their liability insurance to cover the injured handyman when they should have been carrying their own stuff.
Right.
And make sure that you have everything in writing, from timelines, deliverables, costs, everything.
Wow. And I've been in the industry to know that most of your handyman or your 1 to 2 man crews don't have workman's comp, because by law they don't have to.
Correct.
But by protection they need to. So they'll tell you, well, I don't have to have it. Well, if you're working in my house, I require you to have it, because if something happens to you, I'm responsible for it. So basically what that contractor's asking them is, hey, I want to work on your house and make a little bit of money off of it, but if something happens, I want you to be responsible for it. That's
Correct.
what they're saying. Wow.
Correct.
All right, that's a big nugget of information. So could a homeowner just call the insurance? Like, if they have a certificate, can they just call themselves and just verify the insurance, or do they have to go through their agent to do that?
So more than likely, the company that issued that particular certificate of insurance to that contractor is not going to talk to the homeowner.
Okay.
So they need to contact their insurance agent that has their homeowner policy and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this. This was part of the whole process of disclosing what you're doing.
Right.
Here's his certificate. Can you check to see if it's valid? Because things happen.
Right.
Contractors get the certificate, and then the next month they don't pay the bill, and then it lapses.
But they still have the certificate.
They still have the certificate, so it looks like it's all legit.
Right.
So you always want to make sure that the coverage is still active at the time of the project.
Wow. So what about, can you get and be an additional insured on your, like for instance, if they hired us, I know that we can list them as additional insured on our policy and give them that policy. That way they're for sure they're protected. Does that?
So that's only a thing on the commercial insurance. So you can't, as a homeowner, go and say on your homeowner's policy, hey, I need an additional insured. So the contractor can request a certificate with the homeowner as being a certificate holder for that project.
Right.
And the only way that's going to happen is if the policy is actually active.
Right.
But I have seen some sneaky stuff where they take a blank one and fill it out themselves and then send it to you. So
Yeah.
you still want to use, the onus is still on the homeowner to make sure that that policy is current.
So if they're listed as additional insured, does it help with protection if something happens?
Only if that policy is active.
All right, I understand. So be sure you're checking, calling your agent, send it to your agent, and verifying. It's a lot of and I find it perplexing in the industry too, because a lot of people want to find the cheapest price because they want to save money, but the risk they're taking could cause them to double, triple, more than that. Right.
Exactly.
Wow. So yeah, protect yourself, make sure you're protected, and protect your wallet. So don't always go for the cheapest, because if it's the cheapest, then they probably don't have the insurance in place, because insurance is not cheap for especially for a contractor.
Or they could also be using subcontractors that don't have insurance.
Yeah. So that's another. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times, you're dealing with the contractor, and you have his insurance, but if he hires a subcontractor to do your job, to actually do the work, they need to be protected also. And if they're not, then that makes you responsible for it. Could be.
Potential.
All right, so we know that remodeling is going to increase your value of your home. So increasing the value, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but tell us a little bit about that to make sure you're protected in that area.
Sure. So let's take a typical example around here. You've got a house that has an unfinished basement and you want to finish out the basement. You're going to add another bathroom down there. You're going to have living space. You're going to be putting in nice flooring, things like that, maybe even turn it into an in-law suite. So your original house value that it's insured for is $300,000. Well, you just added $100,000 worth of value to the house, but you don't update your insurance to increase that value of the house. You have an issue down the road, say a year down the road, the basement floods, or you have a fire down there or something like that. You only have $300,000 worth of coverage total on the whole house. And if it's $400,000 to rebuild your house because of a fire, you are going to be seriously undercovered, and that's going to cause you to have to come out of pocket that additional $100,000. Now, I don't know any people that have $100,000 just sitting around in the bank to do that.
Yeah.
So, something else, if you're using more high-end materials, you need to make sure that that is disclosed, because that's going to also increase the value of the house. So an example would be you replacing linoleum floor with imported tile for your entry area or your kitchen, things like that. So you want to make sure that those things are added on to increase the value of your house, because you want to make sure that you're not having to come out of pocket again to have all that stuff upgraded after your loss.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. The little story, we have an insurance division where we do a lot of insurance work. So we're on the back end negotiating with insurance companies to put things back the way they were. And that's like pulling teeth. And so we did have a customer that was denied. She had very expensive countertops that she didn't, I think it was $12,000 from countertops she had installed, and never told any insurance company. So when she had the claim, they didn't give the full value on the countertops. They would not do it. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I've actually experienced an RN on the backside. So it's a real thing, and just making sure you notify the insurance, or they notify the insurance company, and make sure they know what's going on at your house.
And I would definitely recommend that after the project's complete, you sit down with your insurance agent for just a 30-minute chat to go over your current homeowner policy and let them know what all has changed.
All right, so another question I have. So during a construction project, there's a lot of people coming in and out, a lot of stuff left on the job site, left undone. I mean, hazards everywhere. So what do you know about, what do we need to know about that?
So one of the things you may want to think about is increasing your liability coverage on your home policy to cover you from any sort of lawsuits. So let's say a delivery driver is dropping off materials and ends up tripping and breaking his arm because of that. Now he's out of work for 6 weeks while his arm heals, so that's lost wages. He could actually come after the homeowner and also name the contractor for not having properly secured materials. Or let's say they step on a few nails that are just laying around because of the roof project, and the nails go through and the foot gets infected, and he's got, just a real bad case of medical bills.
Right.
Again, they can come after the homeowner for that as well as the contractor. So it's always a good idea to increase your liability coverage just to make sure that you've got enough for the increased traffic that you're having during your remodel project, because you've got contractors, you have subcontractors, you have delivery drivers. And then let's talk about the materials and stuff that are left around that may not be secured properly. So imagine one of the neighborhood kids coming over to your property and like a round saw, a circular saw is not secured properly. They end up getting hurt on that. Well, what do you think the parents of that kid are going to do? They're going to come talk to you as the homeowner, and they're going to say, hey, it was your responsibility to make sure all this stuff was secured. Right. I'm going to sue you because now we've got Jimmy that's got $10,000 worth of medical expenses. I don't feel like our medical policy needs to pay out, so I want you to pay for that.
Wow.
Lots of different things.
And, and the thing, when you brought that up, it had me thinking that, if something like that happens, that broken arm, and they get the right lawyer, or any lawyer in that area.
Oh my
and
God, George is
gonna,
bad about that.
And they're going to go after it. So in knowing that, if a lawyer's looking at that case and they look at it and go, all right, the contractor was insured properly. The homeowner increased their insurance. They protected themselves during that time. Yes, this guy fell. We have workman's comp in place. The chances of that lawyer trying to go, I'm going to go after something is null and void. They're going to say, well, workman's comp's going to take care of this. We have the proper insurance. Let them take care of that. So there's no really lawsuit that they can.
Well, they could still sue for negligence. So, they could still come after the policies for limits, but likelihood that they're going to get the full limits is not as high.
Right.
But you still want to make sure that they can't attach a lawsuit to the home and force you to sell the home because you did not have enough liability coverage to protect the value of the property. There's another risk as well.
Okay.
So let's say you've got a single door that you're turning into a double door, so you having to cut a hole into the wall. Well, let's say they're not done with that and there's not properly secured. Well, you now have a big hole in your wall that anybody could come into your house and steal your stuff, especially if it's such a big project you can't live in the house while it's being done. That's a potential risk for you. So you want to make sure that you are definitely going over the coverages with your homeowner insurance company.
Interesting. This is great knowledge. So let's keep going.
Sure.
All right, so knowing all that, is there, instead of increasing their whole policy and have to pay for it, can they get coverage for the length of the job? Does that make sense, the length of the remodel?
So what you're talking is a builder risk or a remodel endorsement on the home policy. And that's always a good idea to do during the general phase, is to let the insurance company know that you are doing a remodeling. Then your insurance agent can add that coverage on there, not only to cover the remodel, but also the materials that might be laying around. Say you're finishing out the basement and now you're having this whole truckload of sheetrock delivered, but sheetrock gets stolen off the job site. Well, if you've got that endorsement and you've got the building materials covered, that would satisfy that, and you wouldn't necessarily have to come out of pocket for the theft of the building materials.
You're reading my mind. That was my next thing I was going to bring up. And people don't think about that. Materials, once they hit your property, it's no longer the contractor's responsibility. So if it does get stolen, a lot of people go, well, if it got stolen, the contractor's going to pay. No, it's in our agreements that if it's on the property, that it's now the customer's responsibility. It's their material. So, and that happens a lot. People will steal lumber, and if somebody steals $10,000 worth of lumber, you're not properly insured. Guess what? You got to buy $10,000 more worth of lumber. So
exactly.
When the insurance may have cost you $150, $200,
exactly.
Not much at all. Wow. All right, so let's talk about proper permitting and codes. When it comes to that, I know the insurance company looks at that. So let's educate us on that part.
Yeah. So cutting corners may save money in the short term, but it could end up costing you a lot of money in the long term. So if somebody's not doing code work and getting the proper permits, they may have to rip out everything and redo it again because it doesn't pass inspection.
Right.
Goes back to trying to sell the house with not properly permitted completions to do anything like that. You might also have your claim denied. So picture bad wiring done and a fire starts after the fact.
Okay.
It may be denied because it wasn't properly done to code. So that's a good reason not to. Okay. There's also ordinance and law coverage. So building ordinances have changed over time. So if you're working on a much older house, there may have to be done additional work to bring stuff up to code, and that may not be included in your proposal. So you want to go over the contractor and make sure that it is being brought up to code at that time so that you've got the proper coverage, the proper value, and again, it'll pass inspection. Plus, you don't want to have any municipality issues such as stop work orders or cease and desist or facing fines because you're not doing things up to code. So,
right. Yeah. So we've had customers and in the past didn't want to pull a permit, and so that's a kind of a slippery slope for us because if we get caught working on a project without a permit, then we're liable, but also the customer's liable too. So, back when I didn't know better, we had a job shut down, and what happened is, of course, the neighbor, they actually know What happened in that situation is the code enforcement actually lived in the neighborhood down at the end of the cul-de-sac. And so when they seen construction going on, it's like, oh, what's going on here? And they shut the job down, and it was a bear trying to get everything back in place. So yeah, making sure, if your job is permitted, if it's a permittable job, which, you can talk to your contractor or talk to the local code
Sure.
to figure out if that's a permittable job. You did bring up something earlier that we hear a lot about is, selling your house after you've done a renovation.
Mm-hmm.
How does it affect it and stuff like that? And I've heard, I've even had a real estate agent tell me, I don't want to pull a permit. And my question was, why would you not want to do that? And well, they don't want the government involved in their house. They don't want their house value to go up because, of course, if you do a permit,
everybody wants to maximize their house value
right.
when it comes time to sell, but
Exactly.
yet they don't want to increase their coverage or their dwelling value to have it properly insured,
Right.
just so they can save $100 or $200 every year. So I get it.
So what could happen? Let's say I did a basement remodel on my house. I did not permit it, and I did not have any extra insurance on it. If I go to sell that house, what could be my consequences?
There's several things that could be an issue. You could end up having to have the work completely redone with proper permits. You could end up paying fines, or that house may not sell because the new homeowner or the prospective homeowner may not want to have to deal with something that's not permitted. One of the things comes to mind is decks. There used to be no requirement for the deck to actually be attached to the house in a certain way. Instead, it was just, added on. Now you have to do it properly and actually have it structured into the house. So if you may end up having to have that deck completely rebuilt from scratch, and that could be $20,000 or $30,000 that you were not expecting to have to redo because it was done by what we call a chuck in a truck.
Chuck in a truck, yeah. And yeah, usually they don't want to pull a permit. There's reasons behind that. So pulling a permit is going to help protect you to make sure they do it right.
Correct.
Those ledger boards are attached, like you talked about, the proper joist hangers, the proper, the lumber being used,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that it's going to support 20, 30 people that may come over to your party that you weren't thinking about when you built the porch. That you've seen. I know you've seen the stuff on the news.
Oh yeah,
whole deck collapses.
Whole decks collapse.
And that's a real thing if it's done wrong. So yeah.
And then you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential liability there that doesn't go to the contractor. It goes to the homeowner.
Right.
So to wrap it up, what does a homeowner need to do to make sure they're protected?
So first thing, you need to notify your insurance company. You need to vet your contractors carefully, making sure that their coverage is actually active. You need to update your coverage and the home value as it increases. You also need to understand your liability risk when you have these projects going on. And don't skip the permits or codes because you do not want to be paying fines.
Well, so thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
A ton of knowledge, ton of help here.
If you have any questions, comment below. If you've had an experience and just want to express that so when somebody else can help somebody else, put that below too. We'd love to hear that. All right, Richard, again, thank you so much. Now, if somebody want to get in touch with you, I think we've had your number up the whole time, but if we'd touch you, give you a call. Sounds like you have a wealth of just not builder's insurance, but you've got a whole thing to help people with.
I certainly think we can help a lot of people with what they have.
And the education you have is valuable because a lot of agents out there may not have the experience you have. How many years have you been in business?
So I've been doing insurance for about 14 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've been with Country for a little over 9.
Okay.
So before that, I was with another insurance company doing the same thing.
So you've seen it all.
I've seen it all.
That's awesome. So definitely give him a call for your insurance needs. It'll help you out. Again, I hope this was a help for you guys. Now, if you're interested in save money on paint, there's a video here somewhere you can click on. That'll save you, get my discount on paint, which is 50% off. So take advantage of that, and we will see you on the next video.